Jonathan Steingiesser. I'm head of product design at Omnipresent. And we'll talk a bit about Omnipresent, I'm sure Nathalie's also there. This is our first meetup since the pandemic that is not online. We are recording it, it's going to go on our YouTube, but we want to go back to the past, or the present, the future. And we just want to have an experience here, so thanks everyone for coming. If you do have a question, we're not going to be asking you to go on your phone or fill in a QR code or anything like that. Just, kind of put your hand up, make some eye contact with me, and I'll find a time. We'll make sure we get to you. We are recording the session though. It's going to be on our YouTube channel. All of our past meetups are there, so encourage you to check it out. We've had some amazing speakers. And I just want to thank our other co-organizers. Nada was here at the front. Greta and Asad, who couldn't make it today, but help out behind the scenes. We've focused our socials. We were on too many and didn't do a great job, so now it's just LinkedIn and Instagram. So if anybody wants to join the conversation or add something that you're hearing or you're liking tonight, or even follow through, those are the handles. I'm sure you can find us quite easily as well. And I'm just going to pass over to Dana.
You remember my name? Okay. The relationship has evolved. Just took a year to remember my name.
Huge thank you to Atolye for this amazing space.
Hi everyone. Whose first time is it at Atolye? First time. Brenda's not your first time. Dean, please. Okay. So welcome. Just to give you a little summary about what Atolye is a community-powered creative services organization. Now that's a really big, loaded sentence. And to break it down, what we mean, Atolye essentially has a strategic design studio that works on a bunch of different projects, and we call ourselves community-powered because we nurture a community of like-minded individuals, primarily in the design and innovation space. It's membership based. If you'd like to learn more about the Atolye community and how to become a member, feel free to reach out to me or my colleague Ramadan, who's back there. Or if you don't feel like talking after, that's totally cool too. You could just leave your name at the jar, name and email, and we will make sure to email you a membership deck and give you a little bit more information. Thank you.
Thank you. And huge thank you to Atolye. We could not do the meetup without them. A lot gets done behind the scenes. Dave, thank you so much. Big round of applause for Dave. And Hadil, who's unfortunately sick, can't make it, but she's the events organizer. Thank you. And everyone in Atolye. So, a little bit about Nathalie.
Wasn't prepared for that so much.
She joined Omnipresent in May this year, so not that long ago, as a service design and research manager. It's a bit of a hybrid title there. We're trying to combine service design and research. So why not just have one awesome, amazing person? Why do you need two whole departments? She has got a lot of experience in service design, over 20 years, and her goal is to reimagine and simplify the way services experiences work, and seamlessly blend physical and digital experiences, solving problems and creating products and experiences that matter. So let's talk about the business value of service design. Welcome, Nathalie. Can you start off by just telling, I think that there's a lot of people in the chat before we got started who are very curious about service design. How did you get started with service design? What's your background in? Tell us a bit about your past and what got you to today.
I will if this microphone works.
Hello?
Okay. Sorry, I didn't push it enough. So, great question. So my past, my present, and my future, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting because that's how I actually look at service design. So approach that from a service design perspective, because you can't envision a future without looking at the past. So let's start there, shall we? I think if I have to look retrospectively of my life, it started when I was 16 years old. I was doing work experience in an insurance company in London, and I was put in the accounts department. And they had asked me, all I did was file expenses and input expenses. But one thing that I had noticed was that the account supervisor was always getting frustrated with everyone submitting their expenses incorrectly. So they weren't being reimbursed on time, they were spending lots of time going back and forth to people shouting at them, you haven't submitted your expenses correctly. And one day I said, can I try and sort it out? So she just said, yeah, go ahead, what's a 16-year-old gonna do? So I started going around and speaking to the people that were submitting their expenses and asking them lots of questions. And I was thinking to myself, why are they so frustrated? Why is everything coming in wrong? There must be a reason, there must be a root cause. And I was asking them, and they would say to me, why did the accounts department hate us so much? To cut a very long story short, through this discovery of understanding why expenses were coming in incorrectly, I realised where the critical moments were, and I solved the problems and kind of did a optimization of how to do the whole experience of submitting experiences, and the error rate actually went down quite significantly. Now, at that time, there were no tools, no processes. I was completely free to do what I want. I didn't think, I just did. But in hindsight, I can say, yes, I was trying to solve a problem from a human-centered point of view, and I thought, okay, I was actually doing service design then. And I think that kind of continued in everything that I did going forward up until now. And service design has become a name quite recently. So, but yeah, I was doing that then, back in the day.
And how has it evolved? How have you seen the industry change, the tools, the processes? What has happened in the last decade or 5 years, let's say?
Yeah, I think a lot has changed. First of all, what the service design is definitely something that is not seen as an exotic animal anymore. Organisations know what it means and what value it brings to the organisation. So, as I said before, in the past, there were no systems, tools and processes. It was just kind of a free-for-all. But now it's become, you can see it in the large big fives, McKinsey, McKinsey design, they're everywhere pushing service design, also Fjord before. You can see in the universities, in the master's degrees, you can study service design, you can study systemic design, which is another layer beyond service design. It's very prevalent now, and seen as also a way to act on organisational change. So it's getting that. Even 5 years ago here in Dubai, it wasn't really, I felt like I was, hello, I'm the only one. But now I think it's there in the forefront. How does everyone else feel about, does anyone know about service design? Have they seen the kind of hearing of service design come to the forefront, or is it still completely new here? I'm curious.
Are there any service designers in the audience? Yes, great.
Oh, good.
2, 3, amazing. So I do agree with you, Nathalie. The meetup has been going for almost a decade. Next year's our 10-year anniversary. From a little coffee shop in Abu Dhabi. And in those days, it wasn't just service design, even research. To find a sole researcher 10 years ago they existed, but they were very, very hard to find. And does anyone have any thoughts on that? Do you agree or disagree, or any questions? I think, Yeah?
Yeah, I can share maybe. So I have.
Why don't you just introduce yourself? I mean,
Yeah.
I know who you are. But
So I'm Hiba. It's lovely to see you all. On the topic of service design, I love the perspective that Nathalie has shared. 5 years ago, service design was like not so popular here. I come from a different perspective. I've been doing the thing you were doing in 16 years old back in this insurance company without even knowing what it is. And when I came here, and specifically to Atolye community, and seeing the diversity and the multidisciplinarity, if I can say, of people, and reflecting on my personal experience, I had a curiosity to do many things, and I couldn't tell what is this thing called until I met service design here in Atolye, when I saw that it's one of the pillars of the strategic consulting. And I started exploring, and then I found out, like, hey, I can say that I'm a service designer because I have this approach to discover, understand what's underneath the symptoms of any problem that we face in any industry, like whatever experience we're talking about. Service design can be there to design with people, for people. So it's lovely to hear that. It's becoming new in Dubai, and I had the chance to just catch service design in maybe the right time. So yeah, that's my perspective.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. 1 second, I'll get to you. I just wanted to share, you reminded me also of just a little story in Perth, in Western Australia. I used to co-organize a service design meetup, and we also had people with similar stories. There was a young lawyer, and she had been thinking in this way for a long time, and then was blown away when she discovered, wow, there's a meetup and there's people who actually do this. And she went about revolutionizing law and wrote a book. She actually sent me the book, said thank you for all of your help and advice. And service design has given her a mission in life of let's disrupt law and such an ancient institution, and how it is practiced to be a lot more human-centric. So I think, yeah, it's our natural instinct as humans, right? Do we have a third mic by any chance? No? Or should we keep passing one around? Just, there's a question in the back. It's okay, no worries. It's a good exercise.
Hi, good evening. Just want to really understand the service design. I know I'm a service designer too, but I have another approach. So I cannot define myself as a service designer if I have to follow the already established service designer according to the way we do it today. That means designing with people, for people, customer-centric. Because why? Because we live now in the 21st century in a world where people, they need a kind of approbation about themselves on everything they do, and they want people to bring the solution for them without losing the satisfaction of what they have already received. So it becomes like a challenge to design with people, for people, because they not really participate on that. You want to look at on something to offer a better service. You want to teach me? No, I need you to improve the service, so you will be happy to have something giving you what you had before, but better than what you were expecting to receive. So I think that, well, as a service designer, we have to rethink about that the world when we see it with parents complaining about their children. Come on, the food I have eaten for being your father, for being your mother, to give you that beautiful, healthy life you have. Because of a neuromarketing, something you have seen is dirty. How can I improve it? Because I have to eat your food the way you love it, me being at your age, enjoying it coming from my parents, the way they are to receive it from their parents. So today I'm a service designer with this new generation. When really you do the job, it's very difficult. And you do it with a kind of stress, because you have to be like a psychology to think the right word, like and you cannot be free when you have a talent of a designer, when you want to improve in service, that fear that. The only one who can help you to make it better for all of us, because you have a satisfaction as a designer that when you give a product, you see that they are happy, you are happy too, because you are valuable on what you do. So how we can adapt it in the context of the 21st century where everything is now, we have to, when we want to give the good, to adapt it according to the way people want to be celebrate about who they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathalie, I think...
I can't unpack that. I'm sorry.
I think I did get something in the beginning though. I think we've kind of jumped the gun and we started talking about service design, but we haven't really said what is service design? What are the core principles? And can you do it in any which way you like, I think was part of the question. Or are there some tenets and some, agreed truths in the world that we say this is service design? So can you tell us a little bit about the core principles and provide maybe an example pitch? If you were to pitch service design to your CEO, your stakeholder, how would you do that?
Well, I'll start with the first principle, which I think we've spoken about already, but just to kind of start it off, yes, it is, human-centered, people-centered. It's about thinking about everyone that's involved in the service, not just the front of stage, but the back of stage. So that's, the people that are kind of powering that service to the front. So human-centered. It has to be sequential. We visualize service design in a sequence of events and how they interrelate with other things and other journeys as well. It's iterative, and that's something very important. It's about experimentation, design experimentation, and improving iteratively as you go along. It's definitely holistic. You look at any given journey from an end-to-end and a service-to-core perspective. So I would say those are the major principles of service design. And then how would I pitch it? I would say, imagine, in an organisation, it's like a maze, isn't it? You kind of think where are the doors? Where can I go through and get my way out of the maze? And service design helps you do that. It helps you see the unseen, but the problem is not really the unseen. It's because you've only got two pairs of eyes, one person. So that's why service design is all about working collaboratively with people together to help everyone get out of the maze and kind of find that way out.
And tell us about your recent experience. I mean, it was an interesting morning when I called you and said, would you leave what you've been doing for a long time in Dubai, and you found some sort of a methodology that worked, that you were able to sell service design and totally change track, to go to a very young company that was growing probably quicker than anything you had seen, right?
Yeah.
How do you build service design as a capability?
Yeah, that's some 2 or 3 very good questions there. So let me start with the first one, which was how
I guess, yeah. I mean, before we get to that, let's take it a step back. You're right. There's too many questions. My bad. Let's talk about Dubai and the UAE and Abu Dhabi. You have done a lot of work in Abu Dhabi, a lot of work in Dubai with government, with non-government. How are you able to sell service design there, and tell us a little bit about that work? What was that like?
Yeah, so consulting is totally different from doing service design within an organisation. So I'm glad I made the switch, but let me tell you a little bit about the consulting part. When you're working with large agencies that sell service design, really, to be honest, I wouldn't have to do anything. I'd just come in because they say you're doing service design. And let's just say with government, they're very large-scale projects, and they move very, very, very quickly. So you have to, I don't want to say cut corners, but you have to say, okay, what are the key tools that you need to have in the project that's actually going to make it a success. But the problem is with consulting is that you never kind of see how it's going to go into fruition, because you can do the best, prepare the best artifacts and prepare the best business case, but you hand it over to the client and then you just keep your fingers crossed that they're actually going to actually deliver on it. But you just don't know, because there is not internal service design capability in-house that understands exactly. Am I getting a bit of feedback here? Maybe I'll talk like this.
Dave, little help.
So that was the kind of the heartbreaking part of being a service designer in a consultancy. You don't have control of the end result, and you can't measure it afterwards, because that is exactly what this title is. It's very hard for you to personally see what the actual business value is of the work that you've done. So that's consulting. And so how is it different working with Omnipresent? So Jonathan, as he said, called me up one day, "Could you guys see working for a startup?" I was like, "Oh God, I'm an employee again." That's why I got out and became a consultant to begin with. But you know, Jonathan's a good salesman. He pitched it to me well. But what was very, very interesting was this. There was no service design within the organisation, but Jonathan believed in it, and he realised that people actually needed service design, but they weren't calling it service design, right? And the opportunity was, you have a white piece of paper, go in and do it. I mean, who gets the opportunity to do that? Very, very rare that you can get the opportunity to do that. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take my chances, and that's what I did.
Yeah, I think what was rare also for me was just having the humility of leadership and the backing that, you know, you've been hired as an expert, build the department and the capability that's needed, and and that's what we're doing right now. It's not easy, but what would you then say are some of your lessons, like for others with both cases? You know, if someone, I think that's what, at least personally, that's why I always loved the meetups and wanted to organize them, because it's a little bit like our AA meeting, so to speak. God forbid anyone's addicted to alcohol.
But shall I start with how I built the capability, how I started feeding it in?
Sure, but I guess, it's related to this question. So the question is, if someone was to go away from today and they want to use different language, use different methods to sell it, how did you do it?
Oh.
And how would you recommend that they would as well?
How do I say it to Omnipresent, you mean?
Well, both within larger organizations where you had to pitch potentially, and also, I'm sure, yes, you were coming in and you needed to do service design, but then you wanted to do more work with someone and you had to convince them that you needed to continue the work. It wasn't done based on their requirements, because they may not have understood exactly.
Sure. So
what service design was.
Well, one of my secrets was not to call it service design. That was the easiest way to begin with.
Good tip.
No, because especially here, in the region, at first I thought it was better just to kind of use other ways and other methods to kind of do what I wanted to do, but without telling them it was service design. So that's how I initially got into it. But usually in the projects that I was doing, I wasn't necessarily a service designer. I was like a UX strategist. So that, for them, they felt more comfortable with. And then through that title, I would kind of slowly drip feed some approaches to do things in that way.
So what's an example of that?
So,
or like a practical activity that you did?
Yeah, so I had to do I was doing a project on shared services, so to create a shared services system. And what they had was user flows, existing user flows, which, I don't get me wrong, they have its place. but I wasn't able to kind of see how each service was connecting to another service, and I just didn't know what the experience of that service was. So I took the user flow and then I just kind of put it into a blueprint, and I started interviewing the stakeholders of that service that was being delivered and kind of did my discovery in that way. But they didn't realise it was that. But when I came back with my insights, I kind of delivered it as a blueprint.
Nice. And the second part of the question?
The second part of the question was about
how do you then transition to being
a consultant.
I mean, let's not, we don't necessarily focus on a startup. It could be a client side of any business. Like I've done both. There are very big differences. I agree with you. If someone did sell as a consultant, is now, or maybe they've never done that. Maybe they've just done client side their whole life, either a large or not necessarily a large organization. How do you, what are the differences, and how, I guess would you sell it there?
Well, definitely don't sell everything in one go. That's for sure. Because otherwise it's just too profound for people to understand. Let me give you an example of maybe how I did it. Okay, I was hired to do service design, but that doesn't mean anything. All the people in the organisation didn't hire me. One person hired me. So I still have to pitch myself within the organisation, which was, actually I would say was harder than just being a consultant and pitching it, quite frankly.
Because no one's paying you, inviting you to come in.
No, so okay, who is everyone? And maybe this is a question that will come later, but where I'm sitting now is within design, within product. Okay, so service design can potentially sit in many places within the organisation, but in right now it's sitting under product because actually it's a good idea because it's a delivery team. It's delivering a service, so it's good that it's sitting under product at the moment. But just within product, my own product team is like who we've got product managers actually. We've got one in here. We've got one here tonight. Come on, Garesh, raise your hand up. He's a converted. He's the converted, aren't you? So product managers are not used to working with service designers. Okay, it doesn't come every day that a service designer goes, "Hi, can I work with you?" So it was trying to understand first of all, who am I working with? And you can't implement service design if you don't know the people. You've got to be human-centered to your colleagues as well. So understanding how does product work? How do they plan? How do they deliver how do they decide their roadmaps? How do they deliver what makes them decide what they need to do? How do they work with the engineers? And that was something that was completely new to me because I had never really worked with engineers before and worked in squads. And so how can I create the empathy to understand what was the jobs to be done from a PM's point of view and see how I could fit in and offer that value. But that takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I would say, privileged to be able to kind of do a bit of a roadshow right at the beginning of my tenure with Jonathan, and we did some blueprinting sessions just to get people kind of used to the idea of what service design is. But I would say you've got to understand, and I'll use the product team as an example, know what words they use. There's a lot of kind of the glossary of what product managers use. I'd never heard of some of the words before, so it's like understanding how they talk, and that's how you gain the respect, and then you can start kind of weaving in your value proposition into the bigger picture.
Sure.
So I'm always curious about the process of how you do your service design. I am a UX designer. I'm working with product designers, and sometimes we have like some process to do. Do you use design thinking when in your process, or how how you do the service design? What's the process you are following?
Well, I think it's important to say that I don't like to put a service designer there, a UX designer here, because as I was saying right at the beginning when I started at Omnipresent, everyone can be a service designer. What the slight little difference is that service designers, remember I was saying about holistic, we zoom out. Okay, so with a product designer or a UX designer, you'll be focused on a particular part in the journey that you need to solve, and you'll be completely zoomed in into what you need to do. But a service designer will say, okay, this is a journey that you're trying to fix, but I can see from a zoomed out perspective that there's this journey, because service designers work cross-functionally across the org. One of the superpowers that a service designer has is to learn very quickly how the whole life cycle connects together. So the service designer can help, because when you're looking at a particular journey, say, did you think about this, and did you know that in this journey this happens, and this could have an interrelation with your journey? But really, product designers can think like service designers too. You always make it kind of pivoting between zooming in and zooming out.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the organization. There are many where service design is not considered a title or a role, it's a tool. Just like any other tool that a designer has in their tool bag. But what they don't always have is not just awareness of the tool, but also experience it's not just following a book and following a process, but it's then knowing what to do in which situation. Again, just like any product designer has a challenge. And that's Nathalie's mission as well. It's to convert the product designers, but also product managers, because they are a partner in discovery, and it's their job to practice service design, and it's my job to remind them of that. If they think, no, that's the designer's job, I'm like, well, no, it's not. And the nice thing and the broader mission is to convert an entire organization to be thinking like this. And that's the win. Some of the wins we've had. It's a long road, but it's been really great to have other parts of the organization outside of product, in customer success, in sales, in marketing, to be champions of this work and understand the value. I think especially in remote teams, when we do have also times when we come together, and service design is an excellent way of bringing people together and really understanding, having that shared truth of what is everyone doing. Because even when we're in an office, there's too many humans in an office, you have no idea what other departments do. So that's why it's great to bring them together. Yeah, sure.
Hi, here Valentino, UX designer. I have a question regarding what you just explained at the beginning of your work, when you were trying to understand how the people were working with the engineers. That you said that it was the first time that you were working with them. Did I understand correctly that you used your service design skills you used your service design skill to build up an environment in your team, and also then you use these service design skills for the future products and what the organization would sell. I don't know if it was clear. Yeah,
the roadmap of the product strategy.
Yes. So the team working environment and also the roadmap product. Was it clear?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah. So I would say I'm a visitor. I kind of go in and go out of different squads. So I'm a visitor to that squad. So I need to feel that they need to feel that I kind of come in and add an augmented, value to the team. So I have to know how they do their rituals, how they do their stand-ups, what they discuss, so that when I do come in, I kind of fit in very easily and don't cause delay. So that's the biggest thing. And I think one of the
Challenges.
biggest worries, it was like, is service design going to slow us down? You know, in a startup, fast-paced SaaS company, it's like, no, it's service design seen as these long-winded projects with long discovery and things like that. So, Jonathan and I was like, how can we make this lean? Still really impactful, but it's got to be lean. And in fact, we delivered, if we have to think of like the triple diamond in terms of discovery and design part of the triple diamond, we were able to do that in 2 weeks with one squad. And one of the PMs were like, he goes, I'm astonished how we've done this so quickly. And I said, see, we can do it quickly when we have the right tools and methods in place. Again, I don't want it to be rigid, but to be able to operate, operationalize service design and scale it, you do have to have, at least a very high level framework of processes and tools in place for people to be able to democratize it across the organization and deliver it in a consistent way.
I think what's also different about this organization is the backing of the teams and individuals. There's a belief and there's an understanding that this is the right way. I think I've also worked in many organizations in this country and I haven't had that backing, and it's made it really, really challenging. So, good segue to the next question. What are the most common challenges people have in selling the concept of service design, and why do you think that is, besides slowing you down?
Not maybe, for sure. Well, first of all, I think I said it before, don't sell everything at once. But number two, you need to look at what the jobs to be done of the company is, exactly. And maybe I can split it into three things. Does the company need to, increase revenue or diversify in a specific area? Is the company experiencing like a negative, net promoter scores? They're getting poor customer feedback, or the service delivery in a certain area is not working right, or they want to do something completely new and innovate something completely different. So you need to see where are the priorities of the business, and then find a good quick win. Because if you just go in and say, service design, without understanding the real needs of where the company is going, you're not going to go very far. So in the case of Omnipresent, we wanted to start with an area where it was a bottleneck at that moment in time. And that's a good way. Find where the biggest problems are, and then start that. But I do want to say, service design is not all about fixing problems, and because otherwise that can turn into a bad habit. Oh, there's a problem, service design. No, it's also looking at positive journeys as well, but knowing that if we optimize this particular journey, it's going to increase our revenue should increase it by this. Then do that too. So I just want to say, it's a good start to start with a problem, but not always fixing problems.
Is service design suited for corporates, startups, or any industry in particular? Is it easier to do in some places than others? Is it suited for everyone?
It really is about speaking to the right stakeholders and have them understanding the right mindset, and giving you having that leap of faith for you to try something and be experimental. I think so. It doesn't really matter, I think, whether it's a small startup, an SME, a high growth, or a big corporate company. It's who your manager is and their mindset. So you were saying that service design is about tools, but service design is also about a mindset and an attitude as well.
100%. Where is service design best sold or most accepted? Like, are there environments that I guess you've had more success in and it was sold better, or less success in? Like, could you talk about that a little bit?
Let's think about this. I think, to be honest, in the consulting world, they want you. They usually like expect to deliver, deliverables on the table, and you deliver those, and that's that. But I don't. It's a tough one actually, this question, because.
That's okay.
No, I'm just trying to think of an example, but.
Maybe the next question you're going to help is a good kind of. Organizations are always looking for data and for specific metrics. They think sometimes that product design, UX design, service design are just these funny people who play with post-it notes or Miro now. What are some of the metrics that you've honed in on, and how do you use metrics to sell service design?
Yeah, so this is really, really good, because you can't do blueprints and lovely artifacts without having metrics in there. So how do you do that? Well, it's going to be different in every organisation that you go to. It will depend on the level of data maturity within the organisation as well. But you've got to start somewhere. So across the journey, you have your moments of truth, and you say, okay, what is it that we know about a particular step at the moment? It could be just in very basic form as well. What you need to have as a service designer, and have that analytical mind to bring in not only qualitative but also quantitative. So it has to be there. One project that I've been working on at the moment that has really made me think about how to put embed metrics within service design is looking at an end-to-end journey and seeing what are the available metrics available in the data warehouse, so to speak. So not everyone's going to have that, but your data engineering team should be your best friends, basically, and they will help you to kind of identify what data points there are and within the data kind of database, and be able to help you extract key pieces of metric that you can embed in certain bits of the journey. And I would say one thing about any aspiring service designers is really try and learn about data. Learn about different ways of analysing data and using different tools, because you'll find very interesting ways to kind of embed those metrics, and then you'll know how to measure your future state and see what difference your service has made. Without that, you can't really show business value.
Any other questions? Yeah, we've got, a few. Okay.
So, thank you. This is Gökçe. I'm a professor of design management at AUS, and I'm right now teaching service design. And I just try to combine questions that you have asked, and the first question, how can we link the service design with systemic design? Because when I'm introducing SDGs and the social notion and the impact actually that right now also private sector is very much into, maybe from a reputation point of view, but eventually they're going to accept that kind of notion. And the motivation of young generation, Gen Z, with trying to get a meaning out of things, to mean something all over the life. So how can we really combine it if we are using methodologies like beyond net zero and this systemic design and holistic notions, but do you see kind of pattern, correlation between how companies who are eager to approach SDGs or social notions are very likely to accept also service design interventions? Thank you.
Really, really good question. Sorry, what's your name again?
Gökçe.
Gökçe. funny enough, I'm going through this journey myself. I was in Brussels 1 month ago to be on a systemic design crash course, and I'm next week going to be at the systemic design conference in Brighton. So this is what I already been thinking. But so there's service design, but the layer above it is systemic design, and it's where you're looking at purpose, right? The social side of things, the planet, and so how can companies think on that systemic level as well? Now, in my situation with Omnipresent, I'm glad that I have the understanding of how I could build a system map with, understanding the ecosystem of where Omnipresent is and where it sits in a wider purpose. But I do have to kind of get the job to be done first, which is the service design. And then as I get to know every single journey across the life cycle, I can then start looking at it from a systems perspective and seeing how everything connects to one another, where are the leverage points in the system, and then putting that layer above that with systemic design. Because ultimately, in a startup, they need to push for profitability, and that's like one of the number one things. Then after that, we can start having more time to pause and reflect, and then look at the wider systemic purpose of why the company exists.
Yeah, great point. We just had a question there, and then I'll come to you, sir.
Thank you. My question was actually a lot less intellectual and more personal. But I was curious, because you started out telling us about how you kind of instinctively did service design without knowing what service design was when you were 16 years old, right? And then about the topic of how service design is an attitude and a mindset. Do you find that this attitude and mindset has also, I guess, influenced or bled into the way you approach your personal life as well?
Yes.
Design your life. There's a great book on that, actually.
In fact, the conference that I'm going to next week is how to, apply systemic design into your day-to-day life, and I'm like, oh, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But how do I apply service design in my day-to-day life? I have to be, I'm probably not that organised in my home life.
You've joined a fully remote startup that gives you flexibility.
Blueprints of
No, I've never created my own personal blueprint, I have to admit. But I might start doing that.
Yeah, it's like a good idea.
I did get that challenge in Australia at a bank. It really threw me. I went out of my way to prepare for this interview, and they sat me down and they said, here's a whiteboard, here's a pen, can you draw a journey of how you got here? And I was like, oh man, I'm not. And then start analyzing the journey. And then your drawing skills are tested, and people are watching you. But there are some great books on that. There was a really good talk at a conference I attended in Australia on a guy who read a book called Design Your Life by an Australian designer who was more of a graphic and a type designer. He then spoke about one of his greatest failings of not doing research. He was invited to go to Tokyo and to be a creative director in a very famous agency, and he failed miserably. He was fired, didn't work, because everything he knew was of the UK, the US, and Australia. He had no idea about Japanese culture. And the whole book, he basically speaks about how this was a huge learning, and then from there he created the book about designing your life and applying what we do to how we live. But I think, we often come home and we want to pause designing things. And
it's like when you work in branding and stuff, you create the most amazing brands for other people, but not for yourself. It's always the way, isn't it?
Thank you. I actually have two questions. First one, building on Gökçe's point, which is amazing, because I've spent 5 years in the humanitarian aid, the non-profit sector that has nothing to do with profitability. And then I found the need of service design there, together with different people in the organization, we were trying to do it because we were focused on the beneficiary needs, and at the same time we found out that the staff needs who are doing the work in the field is really important. So that was the front and back end stage. That's really beautiful about service design. You mentioned that we can start from the core and expand into service design, and from there into systemic design. How about approaching systemic complex problems the other way around? Like, what's your thoughts on switching the model into starting with the systems and then creating like a methodology or an approach that can be used within all the systems entities? Like, for instance, if we take one of the SDGs, which is on education, okay? So why don't we start with how it's working in the bigger sense and engage all the partners in it, and then we start feeding these entities with service design, not the other way around? Do you think it would be?
No, it can work exactly how you said it, but it depends on the challenge. So when I was in Brussels a month ago, we tackled a challenge of how to improve unemployment in Belgian youth. So you can definitely attack it from a systems point of view. What I was saying is that in a startup, there's no time to do that, because when you're going through the top down, it takes a long time to go through that discovery phase.
It takes maybe 10 years to see a change, for instance, at the systemic.
Yeah, on a systemic level. So I think it's important to understand when to use what. And in this scenario at Omnipresent, I know that we need to focus it on a service design level first, but I'm already thinking how I could start kind of weaving in systemic design methods and tools to achieve the purpose of systemic design. But it's there in my backlog, and I will bring it in at the right time.
Yeah. My other question was on the topic you were speaking about of having some metric embedded in the blueprint. Can you share like a couple of metrics that you see in the blueprints all the time, like in general metrics?
Well, I mean, one of for me, it's for Omnipresent, it's like, what's the NPS score? And that's one of our company objectives as well. And then another thing is our CSAT scores as well. And those are things that you can like bring into your blueprints on a regular basis. Is this journey improving the NPS or worsening or making it worse? But one thing I do want to talk about is how do you scale it, because you can't keep everything on a Miro board. How do you start centralizing all of these journeys and metrics? So I think what's very important to be discussed is technology. How do you use technical tools in service design to be able to scale, and also embed those metrics and create a source of truth for all of those journeys and metrics, and we're starting to do that at Omnipresent.
Yeah, just behind you.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm a Web3 experience designer, and I wanted to ask about service design and decentralized experiences. When we don't have a centralized system of journeys and everything, but we have community that is completely decentralized. Do you have any experience in designing such experiences in the metaverse or NFT stuff? Or do you think in the future we'll be able to NFT something like service, like user journey, like a service map can be actually put as an NFT and it's on blockchain?
Never say never. I mean, the blockchain end to end is like service design anyway. You have to kind of break it down. But I mean, with the metaverse, gosh, I mean, the world's your oyster. You can do anything there. In the world of HR SaaS, I'm not sure yet, but I'm sure something will come up. We haven't explored to that level yet. Again, it's a very kind of far-reaching topic of discussion, and where we are right now, it's driving to profitability, and these things I think will come in when we have the luxury of time to think about the bigger picture. But look, it's happening everywhere. The meta. I mean, the fashion brands are embracing it. The B2C brands, B2B less so, I would say.
Probably not yet.
Not yet,
It's coming.
yeah.
I'm working on something on speed later.
Yeah, I'm interested.
Any other final questions? Yes, last question.
I don't need a just a very straightforward question. How do you guys make money from service design?
I guess that's what we've been talking about. I think a lot of ideas are great, but if you don't have the backers to
Yeah.
pay the money, and if you're not profitable, then you're not going to exist, right?
Yeah, which is why, I mean, I'm thinking very much in my now moment. You know, how can I apply service design to extremely important business challenges within the organisation at the moment, and improve on it and make a difference pretty quickly. This is not long term. This happen. We need to show an improvement like yesterday. So that's why we're working in this very lean way across, you know, the service life cycle and process to to make change pretty quickly. But I think we're doing quite well so far.
Yeah, but it's a great question. I don't know how from there you can see the final question, but the last question is, how can service design help product? And I mean, that's why I brought Nathalie into the business. Like, if we think of design, there's a lot of methodologies there. There's a lot of, so it's been around for a little while. There's a lot of schools of thought. If we think about product, again, a lot of methodology, a lot of authors there, a lot of overlap between the two. But what is not common, or at least I haven't seen any books or success stories written on, are startups that have done product with service design. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, it does exist. Everyone says, you know, this is brand new, nothing exists, everything exists under the sun. I'm sure somebody somewhere is doing this. But we had an offsite, that was Nathalie's second week, where we introduced a lot of big concepts, and we said to everyone who met for the first time, we're going to try to do something crazy, and hopefully it'll work, which is we're going to smash a lot of methodologies into one and see what happens. And that's, I guess, the unique thing. That's why Nathalie probably joined, is because it's an opportunity to do just that, to try to make money, make service design count, run product, run your roadmaps, run your whole business through service design, which I think for most of us, we're kind of just knocking on the door of upper management to make this thing important. But at least for most of my career, it's been a struggle to have the buy-in. I think the difference is there is the trust to make it a success.
I think we've made a lot of headway in 5 months. Yeah, but I do want to say something about product. I have an issue with the word product. Agree?
Yeah, because you know, like when you think of Apple, Apple is referring to anything online. It's a service.
Yes.
Apps, you know, like Wallet, Apple Music, everything is digital service. They call it services. It's not just streaming services, but even something like, I don't know, Maps, Apple Maps, right? And anything hardware, they're actually referring to as a product. So I think there's this kind of like, you know, misunderstanding what is a service, what is a product. And then
Yeah, so I did speak a little bit about that at the beginning, didn't I? So it's about whether you have a product-orientated or service-orientated mindset, because we're not in a make and sell, we're not in 20th century anymore. We have to think more in a service-orientated point of view. So I gave an example, for example, when you see an umbrella, if you see it purely as, okay, I'm going to make and sell an umbrella, you're very product orientated. But if you see the solution for the rain, exactly, we're on the same wavelength, and that's where you look about, you know, service orientation. And so you're not delivering value to your customer. You should be co-creating that value with your customer, and that's where you get the exchange of service. So that's kind of the mindset that I want to kind of bring into a product team, products will always remain product, but it's, as I say, it's a mindset, and that needs to kind of make that switch.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, product probably doesn't always think of product, it's just a name they haven't replaced yet. They're also thinking of services, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We have...
Is that the time?
Yeah,
Oh
it's 8 o'clock, and
so who wants to become a service designer
very
now?
strict instructions. We do have a little bit of time to network, and if you want to chat to Nathalie, you can, but I just want us formally to bring us to a close. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Nathalie. Amazing.